MoviePass Black founders pushed out of their own company. Here we go again. Could have just as easily been the headline here. According to Vanity Fair, filmmaker Muta'Ali Muhammad thought he knew the MoviePass story, how the too good to be true movie subscription service flamed out spectacularly, culminating when MoviePass and its parent company filed for bankruptcy in 2020. After a series of baffling pricing changes and nightmare service issues, the Federal Trade Commission accused the company of purposefully locking out subscribers and misusing their data. Company CEOs also faced claims from 4 California district attorneys' offices that they had engaged in, quote, unlawful business practices. In 2021, MoviePass settled with the FTC and its CEOs settled with the district attorneys.
With millions watching and many people benefiting from this program called Indisputable, we just need 1% of the viewers to become a paid member so we can continue to bring this content to you. Now back to the show.
But the story Muhammad learned was more disturbing. How MoviePass's actual founders, Black entrepreneurs Stacey Spikes and Hammett Watt, were pushed out of the company they created and replaced by smooth-talking, gray-haired white guys. Mitch Lowe, who became MoviePass CEO, Ted Farnsworth, the CEO of MoviePass's parent company, Helios, and Matheson Analytics. Rather than steadying MoviePass's business model, the men pissed off the company's loyal customers. And that, of course, sent the stock plummeting. Doesn't sound like a business model I'm interested in, but let's see. 2 years after MoviePass filed for bankruptcy in 2020, the Department of Justice charged Lowe and Farnsworth with 4 counts each of fraud related to the alleged lies they told investors and customers. They each pleaded not guilty and are awaiting trial. The FBI classified it as the kind of scam that erodes the public's faith in our financial markets. The SEC has also filed a complaint against the men, accusing them of making false statements to investors. Muhammad ended up making a documentary about Spikes and Watt's little-known injustice with MoviePass, MovieCrash, which is currently streaming on Max. Vanity Fair with the reporting here. Quote, I'm African-American. These are 2 Black founders of a company that rose to such heights, and I felt what happened to them was something that didn't need to go ignored, says the filmmaker. These are 2 people, regardless of race, who were pursuing the American dream and crossed paths with a situation that a lot of us could face if we ever are in a fortunate circumstance where we have a unique idea, patent it, build it, etc. But we need funding and don't have access to it. It's part of that quote unquote American dream to go for our goals. And if we run into people who have a different perspective on how our dreams should be executed, sometimes we can get in trouble. Inspired by Jason Garacio's reporting on MoviePass for Business Insider, the documentary claims that Lowe and Farnsworth were installed in the hopes that they could help the founders raise money and successfully restructure the company's subscription model. Instead, company lost subscription deals at a frightening pace thanks to its untenable $10 a month subscription deal, plus a streak of gonzo spending. They came in, they spent a lot of money. Suddenly, as the documentary shows, MoviePass had a helicopter touching down at Coachella for a branded event costing more than $1 million that inexplicably involved Dennis Rodman as a brand ambassador. A former MoviePass executive was later found guilty of embezzling at least $260,000 from the company for the event at the 2018 music festival. Managers allegedly boarded a yacht with Farnsworth, partied with him at a Sundance event hosted at a premier Park City mansion, and posted content of their exec-adjacent lavish celebrations on social media. They were living it up. Company also decided to invest in the John Travolta Gotti movie, a notably horrible gangster film, which debuted to a 0% Rotten Tomatoes rating, and promote it with a lavish Cannes Film Festival party where 50 Cent performed. They're like hip hop and gangsta. Movie subscription business was also suddenly being spun off into an airplane company. It's odd. Hence, the photo shoot of Travolta and late wife Kelly Preston posing alongside a private jet with a MoviePass Air insignia. Between hemorrhaging money, technical issues, hundreds of thousands of customer service messages, MoviePass was a mess. In 2019 alone, its parent company lost over $150 million. Adding insult to injury, the public seemed to think that Lowe and Farnsworth were the brains behind the company. Documentary captures Farnsworth taking astonishing credit for the idea in one interview. Any movie, any theater, any day, that was me, Farnsworth showboats. That's what I created. No shame. Muhammad wanted to correct the historical record. There was an assumption that, and I don't know where it started exactly, that Ted Farnsworth and Mitch Lowe created MoviePass, says the filmmaker. As such, there's not much press coverage around Spikes and Hammett being forced out, let alone the scandal that unraveled behind the scenes after they were, says Muhammad. People weren't even looking into who the original founders were because it just wasn't even a question. In addition to Spikes, Hammett, and former MoviePass employees appearing on camera, Lowe also participates. In an interview that was taped about a week before his fraud charges hit, Lowe says this about the company's chaos. A lot of these things were during a period of time where I was in the middle of a divorce after 40 years of being with my former wife. I was totally distracted. Muhammad was not able to interview Farnsworth, who has an especially eclectic, failure-prone business background. Let's go to the 90s. He founded the Psychic Discovery Network, which was promoted by LaToya Jackson, and received 60 complaints in 1 year, according to the Federal Communications Commissions. According to Bloomberg, Farnsworth became the CEO of an antioxidant-rich drink maker promoted by Shaka Khan, whose stock dropped 99% on his watch. Referring to Lowe and Farnsworth's alleged activities at MoviePass, the FBI said in a statement that the defendants deliberately and publicly engaged in a fraudulent scheme designed to falsely bolster their company's stock price. Farnsworth and Lowe allegedly made these materially false and misleading representations in press releases, SEC filings, interviews on podcasts, and on television and in print and online media. Initially, MoviePass MovieCrash was going to end with Spikes and Hammett losing both the company and their MoviePass fortune and learning a giant lesson. What was hard about what happened was we had succeeded, Spikes says in the documentary. We had built a brand over years. The brand had enormous value in the marketplace. We were disrupting the movie industry. You work more than a decade on something, you summit Everest. You literally make it, and it's gone within the amount of time you as a founder can't sell your stock. It just vanished. Partway through the production, Stacy Spikes called Muhammad with a shocking announcement. He had put in a bid to reclaim ownership of MoviePass, and in November 2021, the company's original co-founder reclaimed control of MoviePass. Under Spike's leadership, the company celebrated its first ever profit. Certainly didn't return that $80 million worth of stock that he lost, but it did give the film and the MoviePass story a rare, somewhat heartwarming conclusion. Mayor, I added that here we go again as I began illuminating the details here, because it's the same old story to me. And each time it doesn't get any better, it's more and more painful. It's as if it's assumed that that's what you can do to Black people because we're not creative, we're not genius, we don't know business, so we need someone to just take it off our hands. And by the way, not really compensate us what it's worth. Am I wrong?
No, I don't think it's wrong. I think the irony in this story is if you listen to the director or the producer of the movie, Muhammad, I don't know what his role was, but if you listen to what he said, it's something that has not been done, actually. He said he want to correct history. He want to provide a correct historical account of what happened. And unfortunately, in order to do that, you have to go all the way back to the founding of this country, because for so long, This has been America's story, the stealing of Black talent, art, and creation for the benefit of white people, and also white money refusing to invest in the genius that is Black, like they do in white people, even when white people are less qualified. So I think the article talks about the less than 1% of venture capital that is invested in Black entrepreneurs. And we see that problem right now, where you take these two come in and replace two adequate body folk, and then this business plummet to nothing. The tragedy of this is the rewrite is never, or the story will never be told as loud as what people already believe. And that's the sadness of it. This too, what could have been great, the idea that we see now, we know it was a successful idea because every theater house in this country actually has something similar to what MoviePass is. So the idea absolutely was genius. You can now sign up for subscription to all services at movie theaters and get a discounted price to see movies. But we can apply this to politics, right? Black politics raise less money from white donors than white people, even when their resumes are bigger. Black schools are supported less than white school districts and expected to perform or match or succeed what white people do. Black businesses are not supported. Black farmers lost land across this country. Over 1 million acres was lost because the USDA didn't give Black farmers what they gave white farmers. So this idea, this business practice is as American as apple pie, slavery, and baseball.
Yeah. And then you go to the banks. Remember, he talked about it, and this documentary will illuminate as well. They didn't have the capital. I heard stories about white startups. They write it on a napkin and go into a bank, and suddenly there comes the money. This is what lends to this falsehood that they're so much better than us. They just know how to get it done. There's a lot of smart people, and they come in all different shades, men, women, but certain people have that privilege. And when you don't, you say, oh, I just want my dream to live. I just want to do more, but I need something. You just need that capital to keep it going, Mayor. And I just don't, I guess I do understand why so many people of a lighter hue don't seem to get it. And good intentioned people who say things like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Come on, if I could do it. And they don't know any other way. They don't understand the burden, the trauma, the doors slammed in our faces.
Yeah, listen, and I think the magic of white supremacy is that it make white people believe it's invisible, right?
Yes.
This is how it's been able to continue for so long. The idea that they don't see it is the nature. That's the sauce. That's the secret sauce. It seems as if you are benefiting or you are better off. For instance, a great example is affirmative action. The number one benefactor of affirmative action were white women. The government has small business money that is set aside for minorities. And the greatest benefactor of that are white men through their white wives who qualify as the minority, going to start businesses in the same industry that their husbands are. And then they're just getting these contracts that are set aside for minorities. So it's not enough for the government to say we have minority lending when they're not actually providing access. So it's the same applies here when venture capitalists are throwing money away or wasting money. When we talk about this person's Farnsworth history, eclectic history of failing, that is the nature of all of these guys out in Silicon Valley. We watched a couple of years ago, one of the largest banks in Silicon Valley Bank crashed because it was all BS. And it was like you said, it was written on a paper and it was supposed to work because some white person said it.
Yeah, and they don't get questioned, right? Because, there's that old, I hate it, white is right. They don't get questioned at all. But I feel like at times, Mayor, we're playing what's that game? Was it whack-a-mole? Where one pops up and, I just heard about the Fearless Fund. It feels like yesterday. And then they're shutting this door and they're slamming this shut. And they're doing whatever they can to actively block. And
Sharon, let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
I know we are a conversation-based station, but I consider this. Name one Black person that can fail in this manner and continue to rise, right? This idea that you can continue to fail and just keep going up that is the white story of America. And I think we pretend that it's not when we see it over and over again. And I mean, Elon Musk, for instance, is not a genius at all, right?
Thank
He
you.
forced out the two creators of Tesla, the two engineers who created it. He forced them out with his money the same way these guys were forced out of this company. And I think that is the tragic story, what we call success in this country, even though the technology they're using was funded by government research, so taxpayers. And now he's about to get a $46 billion paycheck.
Yeah, he is. Okay, so like they're saying the purchase of Twitter is basically essentially free. You could say too about Jeff Bezos, and I know that he does a lot of charity. He can afford to do it, by the way, and I'm not knocking it. But remember the complaint that Amazon, besides the antitrust accusations, using our postal service. I don't even want to get into what I'm faced with here in Atlanta. You better cash at me. Don't send me nothing in the mail now. Okay, zealot, because it's a mess. And we're subsidizing these billion and billion on top of $1 billion companies. Okay, we're Donald Trump. Before he destroyed the country. And
that is a perfect example. Donald Trump.
Bail him out, Mayor.
Think about this. Donald Trump is consistently considered one of the greatest business minds of our time when he's never had a successful business. Everything he does fails. If Donald Trump would have kept the money his dad left him, he'd be richer than he is right now by doing nothing.
Oh, wow.
By doing nothing. And no one considers that. Like, how can you be great business when you failed at everyone you did? The steaks, the plane, the fake school, the charity, everything you've ever done, the water, everything, the sneakers.
Yeah. I know you probably don't watch The Real Housewives, but I'd rather have She by Sheree running things. You have a better chance, Mayor. Okay. If Sheree Whitfield was running things from Real Housewives of Atlanta, they mock her, but she's got good ideas. She's got resolve, and she knows she has to lean in on herself. Nobody's going to give her anything. I'd rather have She by Sheree running things than Donald Trump. But that's the difference, right? Bail him out, just keep giving him more. Call him a genius. Remember, he said the banks were in business with him when he wrecked all those casinos and ran people out of town and didn't pay those small business. He put them out of business, but he's a genius.
Yeah.
And on a show and telling people, you're fired.
And I'll tell you something that is genius, and this is crazy too. Today happens to be Donald Trump's birthday, and I don't wish him a happy birthday.
Me neither. I don't want you to have a good birthday.
I hope he break his toenail to the quick. That's what I hope.
Something. Or at least I want to, I don't, but I wouldn't mind if something messed up his stomach. It only lasts a few hours, but it's just devastating. So I wouldn't mind it a bit. And hopefully it's very hot where he is on top of it. You ever have the stomach bug and then it's hot and then you're sweating and stuff?